Greetings, humans. So, few interesting things about all about health and money and finances and work and ideas and a bunch of stuff. But first of all, I want to say this: I try to read books. Well, I always basically have read multiple books at the same time, but now I've been trying to read fiction books at the same time, which I didn't used to do that. I used to read one fiction book straight through, and I mean there was a time in my life where I read about one fiction book a day, and that is not this time. I've been trying to slow down, and I have, and well, that's a whole thing in itself, whole evolution. But I'm reading Chronicles of Narnia. That one doesn't have a cover. Chronicles of Narnia. So that's all 7 books there. And then The Lord of the Rings. And that's the 3 books there, which some people consider one book in this case. I just like having the big book. You obviously can't do that with something like Harry Potter. You'd end up with something that's like bigger than this. And I'm basically alternating chapters in these 2 books right now. And it's so interesting. And the history of these guys is so interesting. C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, they were good friends and both taught at Oxford. They were in the same writing group, and the Inklings. So interesting. I really like that history and enjoy it. And it's so revealing reading them next to each other. Such different styles and even different subjects, which they're both epic fantasy, right? 2 of the greatest epic fantasies in history. Along with Harry Potter's up there. Song of Ice and Fire from George R. R. Martin is definitely on its way, as long as it keeps up the work. And the Kingkiller Chronicles, or Kingkiller Chronicle from Patrick Rothfuss, is definitely at that level too, as long as he keeps it up for the 3rd book. Which I just heard he plans on writing another series as an add-on to that, which it sounds like will be even longer. So it'll kind of be like The Hobbit is to Lord of the Rings, except for his 3.5 book epic series will be The Hobbit, and he'll write some sort of other major thing. Really interesting. Anyways, health stuff has been very odd and interesting. So yesterday I was just like, just like jonesing for something that I used to eat. I'm so tired of eating meat, which some people go on this and they say they like meat and they keep liking meat. So yesterday was day, I don't know, like 15, something like that. So a little over 2 weeks, somewhere in there. I think it's day 16. No, that's not right. Yesterday must have been day 16. Today's day 17, something like that. I'm somewhere in the teens. And I just wanted a snack, like a cookie or a cracker or something like that, but I didn't want those. And so I thought about getting some of the raw cheese, and then basically I knew the raw cheese seemed to be doing okay for me, but probably wasn't great. I didn't feel bad afterwards. I just didn't feel as good. And I just thought, maybe try something else. Maybe try not raw milk cheese, because the rawness actually has a lot to do with it. When you pasteurize it, you completely change the protein molecules. A lot of times they use a different kind of cow, actually, so they have a different protein molecule to begin with, and they pasteurize it, which changes the protein molecules again, the amino acids. And when they homogenize it, obviously, then they change all the fat content, the size of the particles, literally. So you process it completely differently. So there's a huge difference between raw milk and not raw milk and stuff. And so I kind of want to do that experiment. I kind of want to try it. I was really feeling like some sort of snack anyways, and I went and got some cheese curds, because I used to like cheese curds quite a bit. And I ate they come in not huge packs, but I ate like a pack and a half, and wasn't feeling super good after that. But I still just I wanted to snag on something. I kept walking by in the kitchen these 2 darn red apples. So I ate the apples. I figured, well, what the heck? If I think from the cheese curds I might feel really, basically I just kind of lost control a bit. And I figured from the cheese curds I feel bad anyways. And I've been feeling quite depressed for the last couple of days, which is not like depression is new to me or anything. And then I've had this pain in my kidney, and well, we'll get to that, I guess. But so I had these two apples, and that really didn't do it either. I'm like, oh man, I feel like, I just feel like chocolate or candy or pie or something, something in that direction. And then I realized I have honey out there. I have local honey, I have raw honey, and obviously super sugary, so I hadn't been thinking about it, but animal derivative product. And I had two little spoonfuls of honey, and I was good. Completely satisfied. And felt good, felt better after that too. Like right after I ate the cheese, I felt pretty bad. After I ate the apples, I didn't feel necessarily bad. And then after I ate the honey, I felt good. So that was very interesting. I should have just gone with the honey first, but I wasn't even thinking about it. Very interesting. So I woke up this morning, and well, even last night a little bit. Like my entire skin is itchier, which is really interesting. This morning, my kidney pain is gone, especially my kidney pain on the right side has been feeling it. And that is a sign of detoxification. This morning it's gone. So I was in like a highly detoxing state on this diet, most likely from some sort of intestinal infestation of bacteria is what I'm kind of guessing, because, I mean, after the everything, obviously my whole digestive system was completely messed up with bacteria, and then I killed everything. I went through 3 antibiotic treatments, 2 normal ones and this holistic one, which is supposed to just kill everything in you. And, well, so my digestive system was completely messed up, obviously. And, well, I'm guessing, like, it's never been right since. And so that's a thing. And I had, one of my friends pointed out the other day, Doug, that I had injections for vaccines when I went overseas. And those contain a bunch of heavy metals and stuff like that, because when you infect yourself with a virus, which is the idea, so you build up antibodies to it, you have to put bad stuff in there your body will react to get the immune response, essentially. That's why they put a bunch of poisons and heavy metals into the vaccines. Otherwise, your body won't react to them as quickly or strongly to develop the antibodies. So the poison is necessary in the vaccine to make the idea of the vaccine work. And so all these poisons I got in me, a lot of those heavy metals, like yeast infections like candida and stuff like that, those they eat that stuff up. So when you go to detox all that stuff and you start killing that stuff off, they release a lot of these toxins and a lot of these heavy metals and stuff that they've been holding. So that's probably what's been happening. Now I'm kind of out of that detox state, probably growing bad bacteria and candida and all sorts of stuff in me right now because they're all feeding off the apples and whatnot and cheese. So really interesting, really interesting. And my depression's lifted this morning. So, and depression like that from dietary patterns is a strong indication of detoxing as well. So, obviously, I was in a strong detox, and if I have to go through some really intense detoxifications, which I have in the past, it's not like it's new to me. I've done all sorts of stuff. I've done huge niacin flushes for long periods of time and stuff like this. But what I'll have to do is probably cycle on and off it a little bit because it's just so intense. So intense, so I'll have to cycle on and off, and I might have to get some sort of like zeolite powder, essentially like charcoal powder, stuff like that, but not exactly zeolite powder. It's supposed to collect some of the toxins and help you get rid of them, that type of thing, as they pass through. So really interesting stuff on that. And I really wonder, because obviously it wasn't a good test, right? What would have been a good test is if I ate the cheese curds or the apples or the honey. Just one of those, not all 3 of them. Now, I have no idea what's causing what, and I'm probably getting a bunch of mixed responses because I wrote down, oh geez, this is a big thing. Throat swollen. My throat is swollen, like significantly this morning. Significantly, noticeably swollen. That's really weird. Stomach very heavy, gassy. Kidney pain gone, digestive issues. That's what I wrote down. And the throat swelling thing is kind of crazy because, I mean, that means I'm essentially, and I mean, my throat's sore, I'm essentially having some sort of allergic reaction to something, one of those three things, the cheese curds, the apples, or the honey. I really hope it's not the honey. And I kind of don't think it is. And I was thinking about some people eat just meat and they do really good on it. And then some people just mentally can't. Most people, that's why they go off this diet, because they just mentally can't handle it. You know, they're like, just give me a pack of cookies and I'll take my bad health. So, which is human, all too human. But what about the animal derivatives? So, want to look into raw milk. I sent out some messages this morning for that and see how that goes. I'm scared of that one. Definitely need to try eggs. Eggs definitely have to be an experiment. I really want to experiment with vitamin C. You don't need it when you're eating a lot of meat, oddly enough, right? The science on that stuff is off, to say the least. We've got the obvious proof of that. But nevertheless, I would like to try it because I think cancer needs tons of sugar, right? Just that's what it feeds off of, like feeding a fire. And so if you have less of that in your system, the cancer, to personify, is even hungrier. And vitamin C molecules are a lot like glucose, which is part of why you don't need as much vitamin C, most likely, when you're on an all-meat diet, because it's not competing with as much of the glucose, and actually meat has vitamin C in it, yada, 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 and the vitamin C is structured differently. Anyways, the vitamin C and glucose are structured quite similarly. So I think it's a reasonable theory to think that if you were basically starving yourself of glucose, or you're not really on this diet because you're getting enough converted from the protein, it really happened on like a ketogenic diet, but then you add in a ton of vitamin C, like a Linus Pauling type program, which actually a Dr. Newbold wrote about the type A, type B diet, which is super interesting, like genius level basic insights, one of those type of things. Like genius and not complex, which is so cool. And essentially he was saying that people that have these food issues are having allergic reactions, is the basic idea. And there's two different type of reactions. Really good stuff. I haven't read the whole thing, but the type A, type B diet by Newbold is definitely, it looks like, great insight. He was also an orthomolecular doctor, which orthomolecular medicine was founded by Linus Pauling, who wasn't a doctor, and politically they tried to completely ruin his reputation, even though he invented molecular chemistry with Albert Einstein, won a Nobel Prize in chemistry. He also won a Nobel Peace Prize, one of the very few people to win 2 Nobel Prizes alone, and extremely interesting guy. Way genius level stuff. I have some of his chemistry books sitting around here. I have a few of them. There's The Architecture of Molecules by Linus Pauling, which is about chemistry. And then this is what he got in trouble for. Let's see. Writing stuff like this, like cancer and vitamin C. And this is such amazing stuff, such amazing insights. Anyways, I think that would be really interesting to study. And I think I think if you could add vitamin C back in, and it would go well, ascorbic acid, just processed vitamin C, then the cancer might eat that up and either kill itself or heal itself. Very interesting. I'd love to see the studies on that. Those studies will never be done. There's no one motivated to do those studies. There's no reason for anyone to do those studies, because how would you make money after that? You're like, okay, if you just eat meat, and then if you just eat steak and then take a bunch of vitamin C, it cures cancer. No one wants to know that, right? There's no incentive for it. So there's perverse incentives the other way. That's what they're called in economics usually. Anyways, extremely interesting stuff on the health front, obviously. Let's see, reading. I write down little notes now. I used to just, like speeches and stuff, I used to just remember them, and I just my working memory is not like that anymore. I'm essentially, in almost every way, I'm like an old man. At 29, I just aged faster in the last 2 years. Like my last 2 years were like 40 years. That's, like that's the conversion rate. So I'm just a really old man. But I've been looking at some job stuff, obviously, because I've had issues with the teaching thing. Weird thing on the teaching front is they approved some of my hours next week. Now, it's it's more complex than I think I've even shared on these videos. I have contract hours from them, but there's issues with the contract hours, and you can't take days off, and there's penalties if you have to take days off and stuff like that. And then you get regular students that sign up for all your time, so you got the same students all the time, which I don't particularly like. And so I really like these things they call part-time hours, but that was almost all my hours, right? I only worked 4 contract hours a week, 2 hours on Wednesday, 2 hours on Friday. It's the minimum. They won't let you do less. And then I worked all part-time hours, and I mean, for 1 month I worked over 40 hours part-time hours, and then usually I work about 20 hours part-time hours through them. And that works really good for me. And I even had consistent students on the part-time hours, which I guess I won't have anymore. And that's what they turned off on me, because my background wasn't good. And I was like, and finally, even after they said it was good, then they turned it back on, then they turned it off again. Then I was talking to someone else, really confusing, huge disaster. I posted stuff on 2 of their Facebook groups, huge, long complaints essentially about how the whole situation went down. And on Facebook groups, they run, like the company runs, I figured it's a lost cause. I'm like, whatever. I was applying for other jobs, which I haven't heard back from Chris Kresser, so that's probably a lost cause. And I haven't heard back from Appen, so that's probably a lost cause. I did hear back from the publishing company about my 2 short stories, and they said they have tons of entries, so it's going to take longer than they thought to come to a conclusion. I guess, well, it's cool that they respond to my emails. All right, that's kind of awesome. And I've been applying for these other jobs. Oh, so anyways, I gave in, and I was like, well, I'll just throw up a poster and a map, and bam. I was like, and then I sent her a picture and said, there's a poster and a map. Harry Potter poster. Draco Dormiens Nunquam Landest. Don't tickle the sleeping dragon. And from Hogwarts, it's their motto. And then the United States map, completely worthless things in the background. Like I'm going to go over this map and show anyone anything. No, I'll pull it up on my computer. Anyways, they approved some hours for next week. Just a few. Really weird. And then I rescheduled an appointment over one of them because all my hours were canceled. So then I had to cancel 2 of the teaching sessions, or an hour of teaching sessions on the one day. Really weird. And now I have the ability to apply to part-time hours again. But I'm thinking as we approach them, they might just cancel them on me anyway. So we'll see how it goes. But really weird. Found out the other teaching company forgot to pay me last pay period, which it was the Chinese holiday, so the pay period was kind of messed up. And then a ton of students were on vacation, so I got paid almost nothing. It's like $100 for 2 weeks because I had almost no classes through them, because I don't have very many classes through them anyways. And then on top of that, everyone was on vacation, so they were almost all gone. I just had basically the students I'm writing stories with, which are my coolest students anyways, or the most fun I have, which the one today was really funny with Parker. When I got into the session, I was like, how are you doing? And he's like, fine. And then you could tell he wasn't fine. I was like, so what's going on, man? Are you like sad? Are you angry? What's happening? And he's like, I'm not fine. I was like, oh, what's happening? He's like, my foot. I'm like, what's wrong with your foot? He's like, my foot's hurt. trying to drag this out of him. He didn't want to talk. And I said, how'd you hurt your foot? He's like, jumping on the couch. He's got a couch right behind him with like pillows just all over the place, a complete mess. And sometimes after class, when we're getting done, he like runs back there and starts jumping and then running off. And sometimes beforehand, he like comes through the room and jumping on the couch and then comes and sits in front of the computer. So that was kind of funny. And then he had a hard time focusing on writing today. I actually went through 2 sentences that I spoke to him, and then he transcribed them in English, which is his second language. He's 8 years old. He gets online by himself, goes to a specific pirate pad URL, and then goes to line 21, which is the seventh paragraph. And then I say things to him very slowly and help him out with some spelling, but he types them in. And when I say, hey, you forgot a capital there, or you need to add a comma there, he's able to do it. It's amazing stuff that we're doing. It's really cool. I really enjoy it, and it's just it just amazes me. It's really cool. So they forgot to pay me for the last pay session, which was only $100, and then this pay session is $275. So I messaged them this morning, hey, you owe me $375, and they're like, we'll check into it. Great. Well, check into it and pay me $375. Oh, these darn teaching companies. And we went through the whole lying thing before. Really weird mechanism. I think I have a good theory on that. The last theory I talked about, I believe, is correct on the whole line thing. Anyways, so that's the teaching stuff. And then obviously the other jobs I applied through didn't come through, but I spent a decent amount of time yesterday applying to other types of jobs, which are like gig jobs. Because I'm reading Lawrence Block. He's a major novelist. He's like 30 major novels, and he's written a ways over 100 novels, but a lot of them were under his name. And that's part of the hack work that he did, essentially. So this is a good book, Writing the Novel by Lawrence Block. Really good book on writing. It's going to go in my good books on writing stack, which is this one over here. In my good books on writing stack. That and Brandon Sanderson's class is really good. And the master classes, which they're up to quite a few now on masterclass.com. They have some good sessions on writing as well, good classes on writing. So I've taken almost all their classes on writing there too, and those are good. But the books are almost more insightful. All of it's insightful. I took Brandon Sanderson's class at Brigham Young University twice, two different years. I've watched through all the lectures now, and that was extremely interesting too. But I'm reading this, and he talks about how when he was young, he made a full-time living, not a good living, but a full-time living off of writing by writing hack stuff, and that's a lot of times what they call it. And Jack London, when his articles on becoming a writer and writing, he talks about the same thing. He would write hack work and to make enough money to live and survive, and then he would write the stuff he actually wanted to write on the side as an addition to that, and that's how he came up with his great novels. Although there's some, we could really go into Jack London there. There's a lot of interesting stuff about him. Like, he was a major socialist, even though he's essentially the epitome of an individualist, which is very ironic. And he kind of thought his major books that we think of, like White Fang, Call of the Wild, that type of stuff, those were actually hack novels. And then his really psychologically in-depth, socialist-oriented books that aren't that popular were his major works. So really interesting stuff. But I thought maybe I can write some hack work for some people. Like I tried to before, but I wasn't making very much money off it. I was making, I mean, some of those articles I was writing, because I was doing a decent amount of research and stuff, I might have been making a couple of dollars an hour. You know, maybe some of them I was making maybe $5 an hour. Others, if I had to do a decent amount of research, like how to pass the high school entrance exams in Australia, I had to learn quite a bit about that. I mean, I was probably making $2 an hour by the end of the thing, and so I just canceled that. Might as well just do more teaching and stuff, where I'm making $12, $16 an hour, somewhere in that range. And I mean, that only makes sense. The difference between $12 or $16 an hour and $2 an hour is so extreme. And because I have limited work hours, or need limited work hours, as a recent experiment has shown, definitely, that I mean, really, to survive, I think I need to be making about $25 an hour. So I have to change some stuff somewhere. And so, like Fiverr.com and Upwork.com, I've worked through them before. I've hired people through them before, and they're good sites, or they can be. I mean, hiring people is always hard, and applying for jobs and having someone else hire you is always a difficult job, especially on this gig by gig basis where the first time you really don't know a person and their work. But I have all 5-star reviews on Fiverr from the little bit of gig work that I did. I think I ended up with like 7 reviews. I did more gigs than that. Not everyone reviews you, but I had 7 5-star reviews for my writing. And so I posted some stuff on there, but with way increased prices. And I mean, that was just yesterday, so I haven't got anything off that yet. But then on Upwork.com, I applied for a decent number of jobs, maybe 20 different gigs of various sorts, all over the place, really. And one person responded, and the thing is, I did it as a test, and I thought it would come out like this. They're paying $6.50 for a 650-word article. And I guess if I wrote really crappy, I could crank that out kind of fast. And I didn't revise it. I didn't edit it. I just did it in one go. I didn't even reread it. But it's decent. I thought about it as I was writing it. So it took me 40 minutes to write. And they pay $6.50. But Upwork takes a cut of that, a decent cut of that. So I got paid $5.20 for 40 minutes worth of work. But that's not including the fact that he hasn't approved it yet. So that might take a little bit. Something might go wrong there. I had to look for the job. I had to apply for the job. And I mean, you might as well round it up to an hour. So you're making like $5 an hour doing that type of gig. And that's just, that's not going to cut it. So I don't even know how to make it on the hack work stuff. But anyways, I've been thinking about other ideas, and a lot of people tell me stuff like I should be a personal coach and whatnot like that. When you start getting advice like that from multiple different sources, you kind of need to think about it. But my major issue is I don't have results that I want, I guess, in my life, that type of thing. And so it's kind of hard for me to sell myself on selling other people on that. Now, the point is, it's very legitimate. I know the point is you're just trying to help other people achieve whatever. But I've been thinking about other ways, is if I can overcome a lot of, because I need the personal story kind of. If I can overcome the health stuff, right? I could do some sort of health consulting, essentially. I could do a great books program, not necessarily focused on teaching English, because I've been thinking about the teaching English stuff and that, but there's so many hurdles with overcoming the not knowing the other language, and especially focused on China, which is the major market right now. There's major issues with the internet and the government in China, and the fact that Chinese people have this predilection for lying so much. And you got different bank accounts. Their websites aren't really set up to be translated easily to English. There's logistical issues. If you spoke Chinese or were able to read and write Chinese, might be a little different, but otherwise you're looking at basically have to go into it with someone else / hire an employee / a partner or something in that direction. And now it's a big thing. I could look at trying focusing on the Spanish speaking world, something like that, but I know that market less, so But I could do something like for kids and adults in the United States, which is super interesting. And I could do like a whole phonics based program for kids, that type of thing, but that's not, I like that stuff. I really focused on reading. But even more than that, I could do like a great books program, but not the traditional great books, the great books that I think are great books, which include like those 5 major epic fantasy series. Who doesn't, I guess tons of people, but who doesn't want to go through like a super intensive study course on Harry Potter? Be awesome. And it would work out really good for my various writing exercises. For instance, you take the entire series and then you have to sum it up like a paragraph, and then you take each book and you have to sum that up in a paragraph. Then you take each chapter and then you have to sum that up in a paragraph, and you have to see how the different beats work and stuff like this. You can study her. So that's basically, the summaries are like the story. You're really seeing the story and the structure to a large extent. When you start breaking down chapter by chapter, we can break down her style, the spirit that she writes it in, essentially the author's perspective, which always comes into the work, be extremely interesting, and the truth and meaning that are contained in that, like the archetypes, the Jungian psychology and Jordan Peterson's stuff. That would be amazing, and we could do that with tons of stories. We could do that from Cain and Abel to Harry Potter to any story that interests me, basically. So we could do like a great books program like that, which would be really cool. I don't know if you could sell it or not, and well, not sure exactly how I'd structure that either. I have a bunch of ideas. I've taken tons of courses online and that type of thing, and I've done some different marketing online. Be interesting. I could also try to focus on kids writing. So here's an idea list. I could focus on kids writing, which might be interesting because I've been doing it with second language students and it's going really well, and I think we're producing some darn good material. You know, I mean, for who they are, you got to remember that Parker's 8 years old in his second language, but his stuff is still super interesting. His Pokemon story, and how cool would it be for especially a parent? I had a friend contact me recently about her daughter is really into writing, and she was asking some advice about it. What about in the United States? Personal one-on-one lessons, just like I'm doing online, but with people from the United States instead. And I sit down with a kid between, 8 and 14. I mean, I have an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old right now that I'm writing stories with. So between 8 and 14 or whatever, and we work on writing a story together that at the end, hopefully both these stories will be publishable, and we might do that on like Wattpad, like a free online publishing site. I think in the end, you might end up being surprised on how many thousands of views these stories might end up with, especially if we put some decent pictures with the Pokemon story. So it's kind of an interesting one. I don't know how much money there is to be made there or not. How much can you charge for that? I'm not sure. The companies that are paying me, like the company that's paying me $16 an hour for the teaching, I think they have to be charging, they might be charging $30 an hour for the lessons. And if I could get in there, but without the middleman so much, and obviously I have to pay for all the business expenses is an issue, but basically that in the end will just come down to mostly marketing for me. Then I might be able to hit something close to $20, $25 an hour if I was charging near 30. So I mean, it might be viable. And then I could do the meditation stuff. I've quite a bit of experience in meditation and various kinds. Internal mantra meditation. I studied meditation for a year with that monk in Grand Rapids. Technically, I have a meditation certification from Grand Valley that I took online. I did the 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. I've done a few other different meditation things, and I mean, it significantly changed me several times in life in different ways. And so I understand the main divisions in meditation: sensation versus imagination meditation, which I don't hear very many people talk about. I really understand how it works with pain, and more than that, most people don't talk about this. They almost talk about meditation as like a drug, like it releases these good things and lets you forget it. And to a large extent, it's not that. When you're in severe chronic pain, that really doesn't work. If you try to do mantra meditation in severe chronic pain, for me, I just couldn't do it. It would just kick me out because I'm trying to ignore the pain, almost like a drug. And if it's severe enough, you can do that with minor stuff, right? You break a bone, and you could probably meditate and ignore the fact that you have a broken bone. Broken bone is one thing, it hurts. But if it's more severe than that, right? If you have bones pressing your brainstem, that hurts quite a bit more, and it's quite a bit more constant. It's different. It's a different experience. That's for sure. And I would say significantly more intense. with far more ranging consequences in a lot of ways. You can't do that. You can't run away from it. What you have to do is you have to flip it around. You have to use sensation meditation. You have to kind of explore it. Right? It's a whole thing. I would have to do a whole seminar on it and whatnot. But you have to go into the pain essentially. Now you flip which brain circuit you're using around. So instead of retreating, trying to move away, trying to back off of the pain, instead you move towards the pain and you volunteer for it essentially. And like people get almost addicted to like working out or the runner's high, or they like the pump in their muscles, that type of stuff, because they're volunteering for it, or crazy challenges, physical challenges, mental challenges people take on. If you were forced to do that, you'd be like, no, no, I don't want to. But if you were forced to do it, it would be horrible, terrible suffering. But if you volunteer for it, you're like, I'm going to do this really hard thing, then you engage in it. It's the approach versus avoidance circuit in the mind. They're completely different circuits. Your brain works completely differently when you're on them. So when you have that really severe chronic type of pain, you have to flip that circuit. You have to go the other way than you would think with it. And I have a bunch of insights into meditation like that. So that could be interesting. I'm kind of afraid of becoming like the weird pseudoscience meditation hippie guy. I mean, I'm not afraid of becoming that. I'm afraid of being perceived as that, but it's not a huge deal. I mean, I'm worried about credibility in that direction somewhat too, but my stories in it are so strong, but I don't consistently do it. I guess that's what I'm worried about as far as credibility goes. I don't consistently do it. So if I change that, then possibly. We'll see. I have great stories in all these different things. That's huge. I want to personally connect with it somehow. Another one is I could really focus on my own writing, because I haven't been writing. I write. I mean, I have like 80 articles up in the last 8 months, something like that, averaging like 10 a month. But some months it's way high, and some months it's really low. And only really two short fiction stories, basically, let's call it, that I like. And I mean, that's basically it. So it's not like I'm producing very much content at all. And part of that is I've been focused on putting energy and time into doing other things, and there's opportunity cost. I only have so much time and energy, and I have less than a normal person, or less than I used to have, so it seems less than normal. So I have to choose. I have to pick and choose. And I've been trying to make money at various things rather than writing and trying to make money at that, which maybe I've made a mistake there. I'm not. Well, yeah, I probably have made a mistake there. I should have delved into writing harder and really tried to monetize it right off the bat, which I did to some extent. I mean, I made several $100s off writing in my first few months, but that avenue on Steemit is kind of dried up. I make a few cents per article on there now, and they changed their algorithm or something. So I have to completely change how I'm doing that, and maybe go with like the Patreon route, which some people make a decent amount of money at, but I really need to start producing content that people want, which not a ton of people want to read a bunch of articles about writing itself, which I'm extremely interested in. They would like to read stories. So that's the direction I would need to go to change that. Anyways, that's a lot of stuff, but that's a lot of the stuff I've been thinking about recently. Until next time, have a good day.